Hi there, and welcome to episode 2 of Coffee with the Raptors. Thanks for coming back, for tuning in, for joining us for another interesting behind the scenes look at the Rocky Mountain Raptor program. Very excited to be back with you all. Very much enjoying getting to do live streaming again after taking a break all summer long. So it's a wonderful day here. I'm enjoying my morning coffee and my very special Bird Nerd mug. A friend of mine made me this sticker. Absolutely love it. Again, no coffee for me. Actually having some Earl Grey tea. Yes, I am a fan of Star Trek tea. Earl Grey, hot. That's the way I drink mine. So it's been another great week around here at the Rocky Mountain Raptor program. We'd love for you to join along with your questions, your curiosities about the things that we share with you on this episode. Certainly would love to hear what you're drinking. So feel free to type on into our chat. We'd love to hear from you as I share kind of what's been going on with us around here. This past week was interestingly busy. The a rehab team had a whole lot of stuff going on. It was very interesting. They said things were a lot busier than is normal for this time of year. We ended up with 7 new patients came into us in the last week, and we weren't able to get anybody out. No one was ready to go yet, which happens not every week, especially in the wintertime. Will we have a raptor that's ready to be released? 7 different individuals came to us from across northeastern Colorado, which we serve all across that portion of the state. It's a pretty big area, actually. Unfortunately, it was kind of a rough week as 5 of those 7 birds that came into our hospital were just simply too injured, too broken for us to be able to do anything for them. There's situations often where that happens, where there's just nothing we're able to do. And so in those cases, we do offer a humane euthanasia so that the birds don't continue to suffer. And I do know a couple of these individuals did pass away on their own a day or so after coming in, which also happens sometimes when they get to a place where they're no longer feeling quite as vulnerable. Sometimes they just let go. And that does happen as well. But the 2 that survived are so far doing pretty good, and we'll continue to see as the days go by how those guys end up doing, and always hopeful, of course, in the excellent skills of our rehabilitation and our medical team to be able to do the absolute best that they can for those individuals. And so there's hope for those guys, which is what we're here to provide. Now, in our first episode, we started following a particular patient. This was a little kestrel. Here's the picture of her, if you remember, or if you watched episode 1. This little lady, she's kestrel 21255. She was the 255th patient admitted in 2021. And so again, this little picture that you're seeing down here, this is not actually her. She's not comfortable having her picture taken. So we don't have any pictures of her to share with you because we don't want to stress her like that. But this is a picture of what female kestrels look like. And she came into us with a baling twine wrapped around her. She was all tangled up in that. Those can be pretty nasty injuries, but in her case, she's doing amazing. I talked to our rehab team just before going live here to check and see how she's doing, and they said she's a pistol. She's already moved out into our largest flight enclosures, where she's got the most space to practice her flying and rebuild all her muscles and make sure she's in her best condition possible. And she started on her live prey testing, which is the last one of the last steps that we put our patients through before they get released, so that we can test and make sure that they've got the skills they need to be able to survive in the wild. And so she's being tested on mice, little kestrels, little prey. Something bigger, we'll use a bigger prey item like a rat, or for a hawk or an owl, big owl. For an eagle, we might use something like a rabbit. But for these little kestrels, we use mice, and she is very good. She is very successfully, very easily catching and dispatching her meals and enjoying them heartily. So that's exactly what we want to see. She's doing amazing. And I'm always so thrilled to hear about these great successes, big and small, with any of our patients. That's what we're here for. So always excited to share those with you. Now today, I do have a variety of guests to bring in and get some time to spend with you and chat with you. Today we are actually going to have the big boss in. So we actually have Karen Avila, our executive director. She's going to roll her chair around the corner and join me in our studio here. So Karen, roll on in. We'll find space.
Party. We can have chair races later if you want.
That could be dangerous.
Oh, come on.
All right, Karen, what are you drinking?
Today's chai latte. Not always my go-to, but it's winter, so.
I didn't turn your mic on.
You didn't turn my mic on.
I didn't.
So.
All right, hang on. Where's the button? I even made a note to tell myself to turn your mic on. Karen, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Nobody wants to listen to me anyway. No, I drink chai latte in the winter. I'm not a big coffee fan.
Yeah, me neither.
It's okay, but not my favorite. And then in the summer, I have taken my taste to Red Bull, but and today I think I did both. So yeah.
Okay.
So pardon me if I'm a little jittery.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So
thanks for having me, by the way.
I'm excited. You don't get to be on camera with people very much anymore.
No, camera. You have brought camera into the Raptor program due to COVID. So I was only live and in person.
Yeah.
Now I get to be live and streaming. So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were already here when I started, and I've been here 11 years. Karen, what is it?
An eon? No.
20?
24 in a variety of positions. I think I began, let me think about that. I began as a volunteer in 1999. 99? That sounds right, maybe. And I volunteered for 2 years while I was in school at CSU. I was studying microbiology and wanted to go to vet school. I wanted to, ever since I was a child, actually, I wanted to go to vet school because I felt that the only way to work with the animals was to be a veterinarian. Little did I know at that age. So I trekked towards vet school. I found the Raptor program because I found them years ago when I was a kid. I grew up in Colorado Springs, so I'm a Colorado native. And I saw the Raptor program when we used to do the Renaissance Festival for years and years and years. And I always told my parents, well, if you lose me, this is where I'll be. I'll be staring at the birds. You can come and find me here. So I volunteered for 2 years, and then they were gracious enough to hire me as a work-study student for 2 years. And then I graduated, and vet school did not seem very important at that time. I was broke. I won't lie. I was broke. I was a little tired of school. And luckily at that time, the director of education position opened. And so I rolled into that position and did that for 14 years.
Okay, yeah.
And that was
when I met
you.
A long time,
yeah. Long time. And that was where I met you. And you came on to help me out because we were really growing with all of our programs. And then 4 years ago, when Judy Sherpels, our executive director, retired, founding executive director, I then jumped into her role as the boss. So as you say, the big boss, I don't know. I always look over my shoulder when people say that, like, who are they talking about? So yeah, that's how long I've been here. And it's been interesting to see it grow. I mean, it's grown. I think about the program, it's been around for 34 years, and I've been there for all but 10 of those years. That's kind of astonishing to me. But we started, at CSU, and I remember the sink that we had was a little smaller than this table. Yeah, so that was the only sink we had in the room.
I remember that was for food prep. That was for hand washing.
It was right in the doorway when you walked out to the flight, so it was in a great position, really.
I've heard stories about this sink.
Yeah, you kind of had to suck in as you cleaned the buckets, and
I've heard about
it. It was a big mess. And then we moved here and exploded into this space, and it's been great to have it. And I'm excited about the next iteration of what we do, though,
Yeah.
because what we're really aiming to do, and we left CSU in, let's see, 2005, we were notified that CSU was going to use our space that we were in for a big, beautiful diagnostics laboratory. So that was kind of
Yeah.
our invitation to leave the university structure. And so we started the search for property. And the Raptor program was lucky enough to find 26 acres of land just northeast of Old Town, which is where we're at now, adjacent to that property. And back then we were like, okay, great. Well, we'll move in and we'll start trekking towards a nature center. And then, of course, so that was 05, 06, we were planning to move. We started construction on the enclosures out back.
In the middle of a blizzard,
In the
if
middle
I
of the
remember
hardest,
stories.
one of the harshest winters I remember. I still have damage to my thumb from using the drill. I'm
not sorry I missed it. I'm not.
You know, it was an experience. We had so many amazing volunteers, both volunteers that were at the program, but then volunteers that were just from at-large people in the community that came in and helped build these enclosures in some of the harshest in one of the harshest winters I can remember. I remember one night we were here really late and we had a generator with the big spotlights that would come up.
I've seen the pictures.
There were 4 of them. The wind was blowing. You could hear the coyotes howling at the 4 moons while we did this construction to get ready to move on January 20th, 2007.
Yeah.
So from there, 2007 to 2008 and 2009, we saw a huge economy tank. So then we just kind of battened down the hatches and said, okay, we'll put we'll shelf the idea of the nature center. And so we shelved it for quite a few years, 15-ish or so years. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, and everything changed then.
Because that's good timing.
Yeah, because that was great timing. We actually got some great news that freed the property up to be able to look to start building. So the floodplain designation changed because the city of Fort Collins did some work on upstream from us and how water moved through the city. And so we were given the free and clear that our property was then developable. So we're starting that work.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. I hope that you are too. I mean, this feels like...
I am. I'm trying not to get too excited because I know it's still a few years away.
It's still a few years off. Again, the building process itself is, of course, very lengthy when you work with City of Fort Collins. Also, of course, we have to consider the fundraising aspect, but we're working on all of those things. But I'm really excited with the hopes of what we can bring to our community. That's, I think that's what I think about when I think about the Raptor program, because I've been here for so long. They really are part of my family. It's such a great community that we have of people that come to help out, of people that give to support, and to be able to bring our work back to the community on this bigger level. That's really what I'm super excited about, is that opportunity to have people come in, to meet our birds, to see the work that we do, and understand on a greater level how all of us as humans have an ability to contribute to the betterment of wildlife, to the betterment of our environment, to the betterment of our community. So stay tuned for that. That'll be interesting. And that's really where I'm spending a bulk of my time, is in meetings, in doing this, that, and the other, and hosting a variety of different conversations and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's...
I know you've been really busy with that a lot lately.
Yeah, most definitely. So when it's not tea, it's tequila in margaritas at night.
So 24 years.
Yep.
You have had the chance to work with both patients and educational ambassadors.
Yes.
You've gotten to experience a wide variety of different species and gotten to know a bunch of different individuals as ambassadors.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite? It's tough to say. It really is tough to say. I really do love raptors in all their shapes and forms. Of course, I love raptors that I've never worked with. I mean, the harpy eagle, one of my favorite animals ever. So cool. I hope that someday in my travels that I'm able to go someplace or see them in the wild. Even better would be better in the wild.
That would be amazing.
So that's hard. Owls are cool. Eagles are cool. But frankly, the fellow here on my cup, I point, because they're one of my favorites, and behind me too, the turkey
The
vultures.
turkey vulture.
I love vultures in general because I think in some ways they're the underdog and nobody loves them. They think they're ugly. They think they're icky. Now, yeah, they have some poor qualities about them. I won't lie. The whole puking when they get scared thing, a little gross.
It's probably the worst smell.
It
Second
is,
worst smell
yeah.
I think I've ever smelled.
What was the first?
The first worst smell I ever encountered was a very, very fresh great horned owl cast
Oh, yeah.
from a great horn
Yeah.
that ate fish the day
Ooh,
before
yum.
that was immediately put inside a closed container. I was at an exhibit when this owl casted up the pellet with the fish,
Ooh.
and it was horrid. And so I picked it up and I put it in a paper towel and I stuck it inside of one of our bins and closed the lids. And then when I opened the lid,
You were hit with it.
that was the worst smell I've ever had. That was all contained and been in there for like 2.5 hours, just this fresh
That's a
fish
science experiment right
cast.
there.
That was the worst smell I've ever smelled.
Yeah.
But turkey vulture vomit is,
Yeah,
sorry, you're drinking coffee, but
no. As you said, taste your coffee
yeah,
twice.
yeah.
No, I agree. It certainly is a poor smell to the vulture vomit, but it suits them well because it's meant to scare away predators because
Yeah.
vultures are not like the rest of the raptors. They're not as tough when you consider them, at least the New World vultures, like the
Yeah.
turkey vultures. But also, I think, I don't know. I've worked with them over the years, both as active case patients, since I do rehabilitation. Well, I used to do rehabilitation. Now I sit at my desk, but I don't get to do it as often anymore. But
I
there's
know.
just something really unique about vultures. I don't know. I think they're a little more curious than the rest of the raptors because they I don't know, they just use their mouth for everything because they don't really have those gripping feet.
Right.
And so they just seem more, I don't know, they're cooler. They're really cool. They're one of my favorites. I have taken it as a personal life mission to change everyone's opinions about vultures. And if you don't like vultures, let's have coffee. Let's talk about them. I promise I won't talk about their puke, but we can talk about, why they're so cool and why they're so important for the environment. That's the part that I really like, is that they are the decomposers. They're the garbage collectors of our planet. How can you go wrong with that?
Right.
So
So you did change my mind. Because when I started, I
one
thought,
down.
turkey vultures, ew. And now, learning from you, getting to meet our ambassador, Turkey Vulture, if any of you have ever met him, he's incredibly charismatic.
And he's old.
He's very
so old. We love him.
Oh my goodness. Every day I'm grateful for him. But between those two things, I have done a complete 180 on my view of turkey vultures, and I
Good.
adore them. But like you, it's really hard to pick a favorite.
It is. Do you have one?
If I had to pick a favorite, it would be vultures in general, but most specifically, I love the bearded vulture, also known as the lammergeier. These guys are found in Africa and into Asia as well. These guys are really interesting. They subsist on a diet entirely of bone, eating nothing but bone.
Marrow.
They pick up big bones and then they carry them to a rock outcropping. They have their favorite bone breaking places and then they drop it repeatedly until the bone breaks open. They eat the marrow. And so they're always the last ones on scene when everything else has been picked clean because they don't want the meat. And they dye their feathers red with mud and dirt as a status symbol. So, but I adore the turkey vultures too. I love the vultures in general.
I actually just got a photo from one of our former volunteers, Sophie Larson, who is over in Europe. She's traveling and she was able to actually photograph a bearded vulture in the wild.
Oh, how cool.
And she sent me the pictures. So that was really very cool. I have to email Sophie. I'm sure you're not watching, but if you're watching, I'll email you back. So thanks for sharing the pictures.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Now we do have one of our special friends with us today. I adore this lady. We do have one of our ambassadors for you to meet. Where is my mouse? So I'm going to pop over here.
There she is.
Whoops, our camera's a little off, Karen. Sorry, you're out of the frame.
It's okay.
But let's share with all of you here. This is our one of our ambassadors. I adore this lady. When you talk about curiosity, she shows a lot of it too. This is a red-tailed hawk, and she has a really interesting story. We'll share that with you, but first I want to introduce the other beautiful lady here with her. This is Rebecca. She's one of our wonderful volunteers. This red-tailed hawk came to the Rocky Mountain Raptor program in 2003, and she came in with a pretty severe case of West Nile virus. And Karen, you were here because that was before my time, and I have heard about 2003 and West Nile.
2003 was a tough year. West Nile virus came into the United States in 1999 on the East Coast, and they said it came in on a carrier ship with, and I don't know, the mosquitoes somehow got here, and then slowly over the years, you sort of watched West Nile virus cases march across the United States as it came towards Colorado. And 2003 marked the first year that we saw the first cases of West Nile, and we were not quite sure what to expect. It was pretty. There I am. Hi. It was pretty bad, really. You know, at that point in time, we were only seeing around maybe 200 cases or so a year. We hadn't cropped up to the nearly 300 birds that we see now. And we had, over the course of the summer, we had 157 birds come in just over the summer alone. And there was not a lot known about how to treat animals with West Nile virus.
Yeah.
A lot of places out to the east, when they saw birds come in, they kind of threw their hands up and went, nothing to do. And they euthanized a lot of those cases. And I really do give the leader of our rehab department, Gail Kratz, I give her a ton of credit. And we also did a lot of studies along with CSU and the CDC at that point in time. And one of the things that we also worked with were a rehabilitator who, and I can't remember Shirley's last name. They were down in Shirley Casey. That's right. Shirley Casey was a rehabilitator of squirrels down in the Denver area. And they were involved in homeopathic medicine. And their knowledge about homeopathic medicine saved lives because they shared that knowledge with us. And we were able to bring in that new modality of care for the birds. And we were able to treat symptoms. Now, the virus still had to run its course because that's what viruses do. And we're knowing so much more about viruses these days and how they affect humans with all that we've seen. But we were able to save lives. And it was astonishing because it's an encephalitis, so it's a swelling of the brain. And, you know, inside of your brain, there's only so much space for the brain to go because it's encased within our skull and their skull too. And so you'd get terrible neurological symptoms. And that's certainly what happened with this beautiful red-tailed hawk. Is she was a first-year bird when she came in. The swelling of her brain caused awful neurological symptoms. She couldn't stand, she couldn't swallow. I remember seeing in our critical care unit, this was when we were still over at CSU, in our critical care unit, all of our metal cages were full. We had pet carriers stacked up inside of there too. And it actually was good that we had the pet carriers because when you have a bird whose motor skills are completely off, any small movement was exaggerated. It was just, they would fall over to the side and they would struggle to right themselves, and their brain didn't know kind of which direction was up and which direction was down. So the smaller the space that you gave them to convalesce, the better it was. But it was a tough year for sure. We saw lots of lives of patients. We saw loss of lives in our educational ambassadors, which of course was heartbreaking on all levels of the birds dying. But the hard part is 2003, West Nile virus didn't really hit here until the end of the summer. So even though we saw a lot of birds, 2004 was even worse.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we learned a lot about that disease, and we contributed a lot of information through our research, and that was very rewarding on so many levels for us, for the birds, for the community, because we really contributed to the knowledge of what we needed to help with human medicine too. Because again, there was just still a lot of learning going on as to how this disease would affect people. And what we learned is that there were long-term effects for a lot of the birds. Some of them recovered, some of them did not, and some of them had lengthy issues that happened. And with our educational bird here, what we knew out of the gates was, of course, the neurological symptoms at the beginning. Once those resolved, we saw some feather issues. Like feathers would grow in deformed, and they would have to molt in 2 or 3 times before they would get a good feather in. But what we also saw with her was ocular issues, problems with
Okay.
her eyes.
Yeah.
And that is a lasting issue for her. And unfortunately, her vision has degraded over the years a little bit. And you can also kind of see when she looks straight at you, and she may not do it now because she's looking around, but she has a little bit of a head tilt. And that's also partly because of the West Nile issues that she's had. So, but, you know, one of the challenges with her in the early days was that because of West Nile, it left her with a diminished fear of people.
Yeah.
And so she wasn't behaving like a normal red-tailed hawk should. Luckily, she was also not aggressive, because oftentimes when you would go into her enclosure and clean her flight where she was living, she would mistake you for a perch and she would stand on you. And
She did that to me. She stood on my head once.
yeah,
out
and you're
at
like,
yeah,
get
out
off.
at the ELC. She's
Yeah.
very gentle about it.
Yeah, and
I was
luckily,
just
you know, she never
tall
really used her
perch.
feet. Yeah, but she just was very confused about how to behave. And so that was me, you know, another reason why she was non-releasable was because of that permanent brain damage that she had due to the swelling of her brain. So yeah, a tough disease, and we still see it. It's endemic. It's here all the time. So every year in the spring, when new patients come in, young birds, they're naive to the disease, and in the nest they're bit by mosquitoes, and that's the problem, is the mosquitoes pass the virus, the body reproduces the virus in high numbers, and then it just affects how they can survive. And we're still using homeopathy to care for them. So it's been great.
And our rehab team has amazing success with that.
They do.
All the trials that you guys went through, I can see today, since I joined the program after that, I can really see, you know, I hear the reports about this bird has West Nile and this bird has West Nile, and so many positives throughout the summer, especially in those first-year birds, but so many of them do make their way back out into the wild. And so it's always great. It's great.
But she definitely, this red tail, she's been a great ambassador. She's taught a lot of wonderful folks about the beauty of red tails, the important knowledge that we've gained about West Nile virus, and she's been a wonderful bird, most definitely. So 2003, now in 2022 almost.
Yeah.
So she's almost 20 years old. Is my math right there? I'm terrible at math.
I think so.
So she's almost 20 years old. So she's been living a good life and teaching a lot of people. And as I always say, you know, for that she gets room service and gets to take care of her deliciousness in all of those treats. So
yeah, she's a delight to work with. She's got a strong personality still, and a lot of she's just interesting because she's so different from the other individuals, and that's just an effect of that lasting brain trauma. But I love to share her on live streams because due to her vision loss, she cannot travel. We put the birds inside of a travel box for their safety when we take them anywhere. Oh, excuse me. And for her, that's just a frightening experience. And so she doesn't travel off-site. And since we haven't been able to have people at our facility for so long, I'm always thrilled that we get to bring her back out to you, at least in this order. So thanks, Rebecca, for bringing out the red tail for us. Thank you, Red Tail, for being part of our team.
Enjoy your breakfast.
And it's always a delight to get to see her. Let's take one last close, nice look at her, because she is always the best part of what we get to do and what we
I love
see.
that she's looking at her feet, looking for breakfast.
She is. Yeah, she's wondering, why haven't I been fed yet? So,
thanks, Rebecca.
all right.
So
Just adjusting cameras here.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to talk about, Jess, while we're here was one of the things, of course, as a nonprofit, we are looking for support for our program. So one of the things we're doing right now is an online auction. I know you've heard of it, but you haven't maybe out here.
I mentioned it in the first episode,
great.
and what I'll do is I will also put a link to this auction down in the comments below as soon as we're done with our live stream here, so you know where to go, because I've seen some of the stuff that is up on this, and there's some really pretty things. But you've got one with you.
I do, yeah. So we've got, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 items out. It's not a big auction. It's just a small one right now. Our big auction comes in February. On February 26th, we'll be doing our grand gala or gala, depending on how you want to say it. But right now, we've got this great set of holiday plates, and I'm not going to drop it because that would just ruin the set. But it's the Holiday Hootenanny is our auction, and it's at biddingforgood.com. And so this is a set of 10 or 12. I can't recall which. I think it's a set of 10. And it's these wonderful holiday dishes that you could take home for Christmas coming up. It's got holly and ivy and a ribbon around it. And it's got teacups and saucers and full plates. And I think a couple serving dishes with it too. But it's a really wonderful little set that was donated to the program. So that is really great. We also have a few t-shirts. One of them is actually this great little teal t-shirt, and it's got our Peregrine logo on the back that we did. Hoodie.
Right.
Sorry, yeah, it's a zip-up hoodie.
It's a light hoodie. I have one of these. I love it for the summer.
I have a dark royal blue one that I like a lot too. This is a size small, and so this one is also up for auction. And we have a couple other t-shirts and some jewelry and things like that as well. So the Holiday Hootenanny is going on for a few more days, and you can certainly log on to biddingforgood.com to check that out. And as Jessica said, she'll do a link there too.
Yeah, we'll send that out. It's also, I think, on our website as well.
It is.
Yeah, so you can visit that.
It is on our website, rmrp.org. So definitely check that out. Find ways that you can support West Nile. You can support all the different Raptors that come in, whether they're sick, whether they're injured, whether they're orphans. All of the money that we raise from the auction and any donations we receive to the Rocky Mountain Raptor program do go to support the birds that we care for, nearly 300 birds every year. So it's a great way to give back.
And this year, I don't think I mentioned it, but in the report, Gail said that we're up to 262 admits for this year. And with another 5 weeks to go, that 300 number is entirely possible.
Yeah, it's well within reach. You know, it's kind of interesting to watch how our caseload has continued to grow, and it really interesting to see how 2020 our caseload dropped a little bit, because people were at home. We were locked up in our houses with no place to go, and so wildlife got to do what wildlife did, and they did well. No baby great horned owls came to our hospital, which
meant, how many years has it been since we haven't had any baby great horns?
Like forever.
Right, every year.
I can't
That's
remember
like the
a
biggest
time in my 24 years where we never received a young great horned owl that comes in.
It was wild.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was great that they were out there. It was great that we didn't have to feed them, because you know, babies eat a lot of food, really fast to get from, you know, this size egg to this size owl in just 2 months. So, so that was good. And it was great to know that the birds just kind of could do what birds do, what wildlife do, and they just survived. So, but the sad part, I guess, is that now that we're back now in 2021 and our caseload is growing, there really is, we see that strong correlation between human activity and wildlife, and how it's always going to cause conflict. And unfortunately, the wildlife is usually the loser. And hit by car, huge thing. We got a lot of cars in this state now, more and more people moving in. So we got to be cautious about that too. So good learning, good opportunities, good knowledge coming from COVID. The downside of COVID was a lot, but we really did learn a lot about how wildlife survives out there in the wild. So.
Well, thanks, Karen, for sharing your stories,
my pleasure.
for chatting with us.
My pleasure. Thanks
some of
for
your
having
memories.
Me.
I mean, I actually learned some things, heard some stories that I hadn't heard before about West Nile, that whole 2003, 2004, and about her when she first came in. Of course, I didn't get to know her then, so that's kind of fun.
She's a peach of a red tail, that's for sure.
We've
Hate
been
to
around.
say that,
We've
but
got a lot of history. She is. She's a peachy. I love her.
Yeah, most definitely. So. Well, thanks for having me, Jessica. I appreciate it. Thanks for cheers to you with our tea and our latte. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. And
you too.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
And now I get to race off. See you guys later.
Roll away. I'll come back over here because before we say goodbye, I do want to bring in our Gold Star Raptor for this episode. Today's Gold Star goes to patient number 21216, Great Horned Owl. Here he is there. Two guesses as to where he was injured. He did suffer a left eye injury, pretty severe, and he ended up having to have surgery to remove that eye, and he was also pretty emaciated when he came into us. He was admitted to us on September the 6th, and once he stabilized and got a little bit of weight onto him, we did send him over to CSU, to the vet teaching hospital, and he had his surgery done there. They do an amazing job. Came back to us, healed up, and his gold star goes for successful repetitive catching and killing of live rats. So he's been a stellar student in his rat school. And then again, chatting with the rehab team and just kind of checking in on this guy here, they just could not say enough about how amazingly silent his flight is. And that it's just the most super silent flight, even though he's got some damage to his feathers and has waiting on a few to regrow in his tail. But even so, he's flying amazingly silent and just the way an owl should be flying. So he has earned his gold star for all that excellent progress. So it's been great sitting, chatting with you, sharing some of our memories, sharing some of our insight here and some of our history of the Rocky Mountain Raptor program. Look for us for episode 3 next month, and I should have looked up when that was going to be. I believe it's Saturday. Yeah, so Saturday the 4th will be our next episode. So join us here again, 10 a.m. To see. We'll have different guests on. We'll have different people for you to meet. We'll have different ambassadors to hear about. And hopefully we'll get to see you all then. And in the meantime, don't forget, Holiday Hootenanny, that ends tomorrow. So you have a very short window left to get in on that. And then mark your calendars for our big in-person, we will be in-person, gala for February 27th, you said? 26th, Karen said, back at the Hilton here in Fort Collins. Thank you, I forgot the name of it. So hopefully we'll see you on Saturday, and then we'll see you again in February. Have a great day, everybody.